being attacked by books. Let me put these down. Oh my god. Alright. Hey guys, welcome back my bookies. Welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be about my halfway through the year reading wrap up. So what I've read so far this year and a general just catch up on what I've read, because I haven't posted in a while and I thought I'd do a little catch up bit before I put out more of my reading vlogs, which I'm currently doing. So get ready for a lot more content, but currently I just think I'm going to do a midway through the year reading wrap up. So let's get started. So the first book I read to start off 2023 was a series, and the books I read were the Percy Jackson trilogy. In the Percy Jackson series you have Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth and The Last Olympian. So I read all of these throughout, I think it was from January to the end of about halfway through March. So I read these all in January to March, and it follows the story of a young boy called Percy Jackson, shocker, who finds out he's a demigod, and his father is pretty obvious if you start reading the books, but I won't say who his father is. And then the whole journey is him going through and going on, I think they're called, quests, and they go on quests and they defeat loads of monsters, and then by the end of the book they defeat other gods, and it's a great story and I loved it, and it's definitely aimed at younger kids, so these are definitely in your age range for 12 and up. I'd say 13-year-olds could read this, but yeah, these were very good and I gave them an overall rating of a 4. They are written by Rick Riordan. I'm saying that's how that's said, but yeah, very good. I enjoyed reading these and I would definitely recommend them if you've got younger family members who you want to get into reading, because they are easy reads and they were really quick to get through, especially for me because I'm a slow reader and I read 5 in 3 months, so it doesn't sound that impressive, but I'm not very good at making sure I read a load, especially because I had school, so I'm hoping my reading will ramp up because I have no school now. Up next is Reminders of Him. It's by Colleen Hoover, obviously. I didn't read this, I listened to it on my Kindle, and I don't really remember much, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I listened to it because my cousin, Amelia Reed, you probably know her, she's all over my Instagram all the time, but she read it and she said it was really good, so I wanted to read it, but I didn't really want to read it, so I listened to it whilst I was out on walks and stuff during about March-April time, and I gave it a 2 out of 5. It was alright. I mean, there were definitely sad parts, but it was again just a typical Colleen Hoover romance. There was always the conflict and all that, and it definitely dealt with some really serious issues and put them in a romanticised setting, so I've never really felt 100% with that, so I gave it a 2 overall. I'm not the biggest Colleen Hoover fan, not because of controversies, but just in general her writing to me just seems like it's a cliche kind of writing style, and I kind of hate the idea that when people are introduced to book talk, the first thing they're recommended is Colleen Hoover, because it kind of puts them in this little chunk where it's really difficult to get out of your Colleen Hoover obsessed bit if you're not recommended other books. And then next I read The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. Now if you know me, you know that I am a sucker for the Cruel Prince trilogy. I have literally annotated that trilogy to death, so I was so excited when I heard this came out, and it was definitely one of my most anticipated reads. And I read this for a reading vlog, kind of. It's in one of my Week in the Lives, and I read this from March 13th all the way to March 25th, so I finished it pretty quickly for my standards. So this is what I picked up straight after Percy Jackson, and I listened to the Reminders of Him kind of throughout. This book was so good. I really, really enjoyed it. There were loads of people online who were complaining about it, saying it's not what Cruel Prince is, and that's the whole point. It's not it's supposed to be Cruel Prince. The main character isn't even remotely related to Cardan and Jude. She is a completely different character, and I just loved the book's fantasy setting, and I love the Wren and Oakes tension in it already, and you can tell there's tension, and obviously this is the first in a duology, so I am patiently waiting for the second book of The Stolen Heir to come out, but I'm very, very excited, and I really enjoyed this. So if you like the Cruel Prince trilogy, or even if you haven't read the Cruel Prince trilogy, I definitely recommend reading the trilogy before you read Stolen Heir, because there are some crucial factors you need to know from Cruel Prince to understand what's going on in The Stolen Heir. But it was definitely something I would highly recommend if you are a fantasy fan, if you liked Cruel Prince, and just in general, if you're trying to get into reading. It's a more light-hearted fantasy compared to like the more difficult fantasies such as like, I don't know, The Priory of the Orange Tree or Legend Born and Bloodmarked. I wouldn't necessarily dive straight into those if you're trying to begin with fantasy. I'd definitely recommend things like The Cruel Prince and The Stolen Heir, just because they are easier to understand fantasies and the world building is really easy to grab hold of. It's the same with like Six of Crows and the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Very easy and very good world building, so it's definitely something that you should read if you want to get into fantasy. But overall, I gave this book a 4.25, and I know a lot of people don't like the really specific like decimal places after book ratings, but it definitely, for me, it was just over a 4, because there is definitely some things I'd change, but I very much enjoyed reading it, and it was one of the quickest books that I'd read, because it felt like for the first half of this year I've been in the world's largest reading slump. Like, I've been reading so slowly, and I've like not made time to read for myself, and I've got very addicted to my phone, which is what I'm going to try and sort out this summer. But I am, yes, very much enjoying Stolen Heir, so I'd suggest you go read it. Next, I read The House of Hollow. This I did do a reading vlog for, and if you watch that, you will definitely know that I really enjoyed the journey of this book. It did take me a while to read, and it's not like annotated, it's got like a couple of tabs in it for like little quotes that I enjoyed, but it was definitely a new genre for me, because I read like murder mysteries occasionally, but I haven't like really read them for a while, so this was definitely a good introduction back into the thriller, murder mystery kind of genre of book reading. This book is by, I get it wrong every single time I look at the cover, Crystal Sutherland. Sutherland. And I very much enjoyed it. I think if you're looking for, it's a thriller, but it's on the fantasy side of thriller. There's definitely things that go on in here, like folklore, so all of the like old wives' tales and Wendigos and all the gnomes and things, and the idea of this like different world, all of that stuff is definitely in this book, and it's very enjoyable to read, but it did keep me up at night, so be warned that if you want to read this, I suggest you read it quickly, because I would stay up late reading it because I was kind of scared by the contents in the book. So I read this book through from March 25th to April 5th, so it was definitely a quick read, because it was quite a scary one.
Okay, I completely forgot to say, but I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5.
And then from April 5th to April 12th, I read A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime. So this book I read for a reading vlog, but then didn't end up making the reading vlog because I completely forgot to record for it. But I read this whilst I was on holiday, so I went to Cyprus and I was reading this whilst I was on the plane and things. I do not recommend doing that. This book, I can't look at lollipops the same way anymore, and if you have read this book, you know what I'm talking about. Monica Murphy. Romance books are definitely something. Again, I'm not really a big romance girly, and I want to change that, because there are some romance books I absolutely adore. Emily Henry, you'll see later on in this little video. I love her so much. I literally read anything by her and I like eat it up. I love that stuff, okay? But this, the chemistry between, what are their names? Ren and Crew, it was iffy. Like, I'm sorry, it just felt wrong, and it gave Gossip Girl without the Gossip Girl bit. It just felt like rich people who were horny trying to, you know, and then Ren, no. Sorry, not for me. I definitely recommend it if you do enjoy smutty romance. I'm looking at you, Amelia. There were tropes in here that I didn't enjoy. The bullying trope, just, it wasn't for me. Okay, if you enjoyed it, that's good. I originally gave it a 3 and then bumped it down to a 2.5, and I am at the moment questioning just, you know, bumping it down to a 2. which is probably what I'm going to end up doing. So overall I gave this book 2 stars, but if you enjoyed it, that's good for you, and I could see why some people enjoy it, but it was just definitely not my cup of tea. I put myself through 500 pages worth of dodgy romance. Anyway, moving on. After A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime, I read Lore Olympus, which is an online comic book. Here, this thing right here. And I read that, and I read all 5 books of it. So there are like actual 5 published copies, but on Webtoon, where I read it, there's more that aren't made into copies yet. So I read all of it on Webtoon. So technically I've read 7 books, but it's only 5 because the other 2 books aren't unpublished. But yes, I very much enjoyed those. I don't really rate webtoons and stuff like that. Like, I didn't really rate Heartstopper or anything because I don't like believe that people's artwork should be rated. The story was good, the plot's good. I love Greek mythology, so obviously I'd love it. So if you like Greek mythology and all of that, then I definitely suggest you having a look at Lore Olympus. But there are definitely some of my friends who do enjoy Greek mythology who definitely don't like it. So it all depends on kind of like where you are and all of that. But it's definitely something that I very much enjoyed, and the plot is very good, and I got very invested in it. And I read the entirety of the 7 books in about 5 days, so I was very much reading it at a rapid rate. Okay, I was obsessed. But yeah, I definitely recommend going to have a look at it if you are very much into the Greek mythology, kind of like the relationships between the gods and all of that. I very much suggest it. It follows Persephone and Hades' relationship and all that, so it was very, very fun to have a read of, because I have a book on my bookshelf called A Touch of Darkness, that's what it's called. So it's the same relationship, so I'm very, very nervous to read A Touch of Darkness. After Lore Olympus, I read You and Me on Vacation, or The People We Meet on Vacation, depending on where you are in the world. For me, it is You and Me on Vacation, obviously, because I live in the UK, so I have the UK covers. I read this from May 1st to May 11th. It was a very, very quick, enjoyable read. Obviously, you can tell I enjoyed it because I have tabbed it. Not like a load, but I tabbed it because I really enjoyed the characters in it. I love any Emily Henry book. You do not understand the pull this author has on me. Like, she released Happy Place and I bought it within a week of it coming out. And I am a broke teenager, okay? I don't have a job. I am unemployed and I am spending money I don't have on books. I love Emily Henry with my entire heart and soul, which is why I really, really enjoyed this book. It is roughly around this whole thing of there are these 2 friends. Their names are Poppy and Alex, and they go on holiday once a year for every year, and they stopped going on holiday together, and then they go on one last holiday together, and they realise that maybe they're not just friends. But I very much enjoyed reading this. I gave it an overall 4.75, so it was very, very close to being a 5 stars. The only thing that really annoyed me was the big guy, small girl trope. Like, honestly, can we stop making it that, like, the women are so littly petite and they're all, like, big buff men? Like, can it be the other way around? Can we have a Zendaya, Tom Holland kind of thing in a book for once? Like, please. I am begging you. Like, I beg, okay? But yeah, I really enjoyed this book and I gave it 4.75 stars. Next, I read The Bell Jar. I read this because I felt like reading like a classic history kind of thing. I didn't really feel like coming out of a romance and going back into another one. So I read this pretty quickly. I love this book because it's very worn and it's heavily like annotated, so I very much enjoyed that. And this book, it was something else. I so much enjoyed reading it, and the idea that you're just following one girl go through a time in her life which is so difficult for anyone, and I just love the ideas that are shown throughout it. And obviously it's written by Sylvia Plath, who had similar things going on with Esther, so it was really nice to see that reflection in The Bell Jar, and I'm very happy that I picked it up. And I do suggest anyone that's above 16 upwards, I'd say, because there are some topics in here that are definitely not suitable for younger teenagers, but I really much enjoyed it, as you can tell from all of the annotating, and it was a heartbreaking book to read, but at the same time it was such an emotionally incredible book to read, so I definitely suggest it. But yeah, I gave it an overall rating of a 4. I didn't give it 5 stars because there were just a few things I didn't like in it. It felt a bit slow in some places, and there were some times where I just wasn't happy with Esther, but I think that's like part of the point, that you're not supposed to be happy with her all of the time. And then finally, so far this year, I read Happy Place. I spent good earned money to get this book because I was obsessed with it. I saw it, I could not scroll 3 Instagram reels without seeing this book, okay? Like, everyone was obsessed with it, and I'm so happy I picked it out. This is obviously another book by Emily Henry. When I tell you this is the best book by Emily Henry so far, I am telling you it is the best, okay? I gave it 5 stars, and I absolutely love Win. I love him, okay? Win and Harriet. I love them. They are so good together. And I don't care that the entire book is miscommunication. I don't want to hear it. I tell my friends it's a miscommunication trope and I get shut down. But this is the only good miscommunication trope, okay? You gotta listen, okay? This is such a good book. Oh, the chemistry, you could feel it. You could feel that chemistry. And I was like dying reading this, okay? I read this over my exam period, so I didn't read it really quickly, but I was invested. It's like all I thought about. When I'd finished my exams, I'd just sit there and think about getting home and reading this book, okay? I was obsessed. So obviously I gave it 5 stars, and I definitely suggest reading it as a light-hearted summer romance, but there are definitely some more emotional chapters in here. It was a roller coaster, and I loved it, okay? I loved this book. And then I thought I'd just quickly brush on my current read, obviously, because it is still halfway through the year. So this is my current read, it's Babel, and I'm liking it. It's really difficult and it's challenging me intelligently, so I'm definitely very much enjoying that idea that I'm actually having to look up words for once in a book. But at the moment it's definitely confusing me, which is good. I couldn't give you a rating yet because I don't know. I am really struggling at the moment. I mean, we're just getting to the stage where like world building's finished, so I kind of know where everything is. And we're getting into the plot now, I think, which is very exciting because I just want it to start like actually going somewhere. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this book at the moment, and I definitely suggest it if you like history and all of that, because it's on the Oxford Translators Revolution, which obviously for someone who's aspiring to go to Oxford is something really cool to learn about, especially through a fantasy setting. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. Sorry it's a little short one, but I really enjoyed reading all of these books and I definitely suggest them. So if you want to go read a book today, maybe look through this, see which one you like the genre idea of, and then pick it up and start reading. I hope you are having a lovely summer. It is definitely not the best summer weather in Britain, and I will see you all soon. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Pinterest at Meredith Tales, and I have a blog which I have linked down below. I have 2 posts up by the time you're watching this. Please go give my blog a read, go follow my blog, go follow me on Instagram, subscribe to me here, like, comment, tell me how you think, and if you've got any more ideas you want to see me do, comment them down below. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all later, bookies. Bye!